Welcome to House Money with Corbin Matisse. Here we have real conversations with Texas real estate experts. You'll hear true stories about the market from the heart of Texas real estate. Let's go.
Albert Chen, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Albert Chen has over 6.2 million in buy-side production and almost another 4 million in listings sold. Albert Chen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks again for coming on. So you've sold a good amount of new construction. Make the case on why home buyers should consider new construction when shopping for a home right now.
I think the biggest reason why buyers should consider new constructions, and I won't say that is the only options, but I do think that should be the first option they should consider, is because right now the builders are offering a lot of incentives, including they may pay to buy down the rate, and almost all of them will offer some type of builder credit. Sometimes you have to use that to buy down the rate, but some builders are actually offering builder credit on top of the rate buy down, which just makes it very, very appealing. Now, I will say that for me as a realtor, I usually do my homework on the builders because there are builders that are well known for building quality products, and here in Central Texas, Perry comes to mind. Perry Home is always somebody who set a very high standards. Obviously, there are other great builders like Toll Brothers, Taylor Morrison. I'm not saying Perry is the only one, but I have had personal experience as well as through clients that Perry, even after their warranty expired, really stand behind their product. Now, obviously on the lower end, and by the way, Corbin, I don't know if I'm okay with throwing out names here, but if I'm not, stop me. And
no, you're good. Speak candidly.
And I think on the sort of more of the entry level homes, if you will, I know a lot of times D.R. Horton and Lennar gets a bad rap because they're so big, and of course, just like most large companies, you're going to have some rotten apples mixed in. But what I found is that a lot has to do with the communities that you're looking at, and more specifically the super or the builders that's overseeing the constructions. If you get a good builder, you're going to have great experience. They're going to stand behind their product. They're going to have a pride of building a solid home like any other great builders. And if you have a bad builders that are literally just, punching their meal ticket and try to check everything off the list, you're going to have a different experience. So for home buyers that are looking at new constructions, one, they definitely should because of the incentives. Two is make sure that they're working with a reputable realtor that knows the area, and also do a little research on their own. There's plenty of things you can find on Facebook and social media these days.
So talk to me about Lennar specifically. I'll tell you why I ask at the end, because what I'm going to share with you doesn't have much to do with things from a home buyer perspective, but Lennar's on my mind right now, and I'll share a story with you after you're done.
Sure. Yeah, I think my experience with Lennar, I have geographically speaking, just to put things in context, I'm based in Georgetown, so most of my productions are essentially from Leander North, if you will, Leander, Liberty Hill, Georgetown, Gero. I have done business in Round Rock, Pflugerville, throughout all Central Texas, but I'll say if you look at my production, bulk of them are from basically Leander North. And I have sold a lot of Lennar homes in Georgetown, Gero area, and by and large, I've pretty good experience with the entire team. Sorry, I'm going to put my phone on mute so it doesn't keep on going. By and large, I would say most of the build experience has been very positive. And from a home buyer perspective, what Lennar does is that right now, for a lot of neighborhoods, they're offering rate buy down as well as appliance package plus a builder incentives, and depending on the community, obviously that could vary. So you're actually going to, even on a $300,000-$400,000 purchase, you could get as much as $30,000 or $40,000 of incentives, and on top of that, so that makes it very appealing for people that are looking to buy their first or second home. In terms of the build process, what Lennar usually does is they do welcome third-party inspectors, and right now most builders they do welcome that. And there once upon a time where they viewed the inspectors almost like their enemy, but now most of them do welcome that. And I will say whether a buyer should, get a third-party inspector, really just depending on their comfort level. I have had buyers that will not get the inspection right off the bat, but they will get the inspections after 11 months, so they can work out all the kinks and have the inspector kind of come back and validate some of those things and have the builder fix it. But I'm not here to recommend one over the other. Those are just options for the buyer. And but in terms of Lennar, in addition to third-party inspection, once you go under contract, there's also they will do an initial walk, which is also commonly referred to as blue tape walk, where you go through, you mark up all the house, and but generally speaking, if you don't have a third-party inspection, you decide not to do that, I'll also suggest the buyer to physically test everything. Literally, I've had buyers that decide not to do a third-party inspection where they're tripping every breakers, where they're tripping every GFCI and just make sure it trips and come back, and where they're turning on every faucet, flush every toilet, and just go through the whole thing. I'm not saying a realtor should be like an inspector, but the realtor should be there to help the buyer and try to uncover as much as possible doing those things. And of course, before you close, usually it's the day before, they'll do final inspections. Just check everything off that's been identified on the third party as well as identified during the initial walk.
All right, so that's interesting on Lennar. So yesterday, I asked ChatGPT for the top 25 non-Fortune 500 companies with the best P&E ratios or price to earnings ratios. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not investment advice. But out of that top 25, there's only one that is in the home building sector, and Lennar was number 9 on the list. So they're the only ones on this list of top 25 for undervalued stocks. So companies that a consumer can, again, not advice for a home buyer. This is info on the stock market, but it is relevant right now just because we were running this search. We were sitting at Mama's Fish House in Maui, Hawaii, and I don't remember why we were running this, but we ran this list and asked it in a couple different queries, and Lennar kept coming up. So they're number 9 on this list in home building with a 7.9% P&E ratio. And so in the world of good companies to invest in, Lennar's right up there at the top, like in the top 10 companies in the world. So I thought that was worth mentioning on the topic of new construction, because I've seen you've done a couple deals with DHI, a couple deals with Lennar. So I thought you might have some good insight in that regard.
Yeah, and I'll say, Corbin, I guess my take on Lennar is they're almost like Toyota back in the 80s and 90s, right? And they built they're not known for luxury. They're known for reliabilities, and you get a big bang for your buck, if you will. And they're not necessarily out there trying to compete with Perry of the world versus D.R. Horton is, because D.R. Horton they did roll out, I forgot the right terminology, but almost like their premier product, if you will. They are in neighborhoods where Perry's are also building, where they're building more luxury homes, and they're having this 6-foot tall windows, just kind of almost like try to compete with Perry. And I feel like Lennar is they know who they are, and they know what's making people come to them, and what their brand is all about. So they're not trying to overly diversify, if you will. So
That's awesome. So now, if you can, switch gears and now make the case for a buyer shopping for a home that's selling for its second or third time
Like a
in an
reseller,
established,
basically.
yeah, or in an established neighborhood. Make the case for that now.
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, I would say if the buyer has is open to a geography or area that you have new constructions and you have resale, a prudent buyer should look at both options. They should look as many homes as possible if they don't know what they want. And because it's a building block, for me, home shopping is a building block process where buyer has to gather information to make that informed decisions, because it's almost like they don't look at home, they don't have that baseline knowledge unless they have bought and sold a lot of homes over the years, right? But most buyers in that price point, I'll say, if this is their second home or even their home, they just don't have enough experience. So they should look at both. But specifically to me right now, there are opportunities on resale right now, because if you look at even a neighborhood, for example, I'm in, it's been around since 2017 or something along there, and you have people that bought their home before the market went crazy. So the home is now worth maybe 350, 450, somewhere around there. They might bought it below 300,000. They have reasons why they want to sell, and usually right now most sellers I'm dealing with, there's three main reasons why most people are selling. Patience, unfortunately, sometimes it's divorce, and the other big D, which is death. We're dealing with probate where people have passed on and they're selling mom and dad's home because mom and dad are no longer with us. So those are really three main reasons why people are selling. Now, if people that bought their home before the pandemic, even though the market had took a downturn in Central Texas and quite frankly most of the country in the last 2 or 3 years, they're still sitting on a decent amount of equity. So if their motivation is that we are done with this chapter, we're looking to move on, you are able to get a better deal with those resale homes than you would on the new constructions, even with the builder incentives. Because at some point, a seller needs to sell and they just want to be done with it. The other main reason is that, much like a old pair of shoes, all of the rough edges has been worked out when you buy a resale home. People have flushed the plumbing 1,000 times already. You're not going to have things that an inspector will not uncover because he had the water running for an hour. The water has been running thousands of hours, over the life of the home has been lived in. So a lot of those things I feel like has been uncovered, and where you won't going through almost like a growing pain of a new constructions, because with every new constructions you are going to run into a little bit issue here and there, which is why builder offer the 12-month warranty almost bumper to bumper, because they want to allow you time to work out those kinks and come back and fix it. With new constructions, with resale, the benefits is those kinks have been worked out already.
I like that argument. You ever listen to Grant Cardone? He's like I think he's a syndicator now, so he does gathers people's money and helps them passively invest in real estate. I heard he had this hilarious saying for established neighborhoods, and this applies to multifamily also, but he says, big trees, big cheese. And he's talking about how you'll find big trees in an established neighborhood, and they're an indicator of available value, or he likes to invest in an established neighborhood, and he uses that saying to indicate it. And I've seen him walk properties on video, and he'll talk about that. So anyway, interesting stuff. Albert, you and I both got into the real estate business in 2021. So we started the same year. What had you get into real estate?
So a little bit more about me. I have a law degree. I never practiced law, but I spent probably close to 30 years before I became a realtor working in legal adjacent fields. Specifically, I was a senior executive of a company whose primary clients are lawyers. And so I did not, although I was making a decent living, did not foresee that I want to retire in that capacity. And, it was basically, it was the same thing with running your business. I was oversee every aspect of the company, but by the same token, obviously I'm making money for somebody else, not for myself. And I was a real estate investor for decades before I became a realtor, and I always found that being a realtor, like running any other business, you have to run it like a business. You have to think about how are you going to, what's your selling point? How do you market yourself? How do you sell a property? How do you connect with people? How do you handle customer service? And there are tons of great realtors out there. So by no means this is not try to speak down to some of my colleagues, but I feel like a lot of times people get into real estate because they see the high. They see what's on TV. They see the glamorous aspect. They don't see the fact that, hey, I've been there helping buyers take out trash because the seller will leave the house in disarray. I have been there try to negotiate last minute because one of my listings, the seller decided to take all the curtains out of the house. And those are not great curtains, but the buyer walked in doing final walk, says, what happened to all the curtains? And seller didn't want to pay. So we're trying to figure out how do you get the deal done very last minute. So, but those things actually excites me because that's what I did for 25 years is problem solve. Except now I can problem solve and that's my own business and I'm furthering my own career, if you will, rather than solving problem for a company and helping other people to drive a bigger profit. And so I do run my business very much like a business. I mean, it's a small business. We're all small businesses here, but it is a business. It's not, I build my business, not just on referrals from what we call spheres, which is people that before you got into real estate. Most of my clients, when I first started, are people that didn't know me. People that I met through passing. They like what I bring to the table. I have a lot of credibilities, and most of my clients have either, I would say probably 85 to 90% of my clients either have referred me to somebody or have done multiple transactions since I started working with them. As a former client before I got into real estate, there are very few realtors that I've done more than 2 deals with. And I feel like a lot of people are in that same boat. So that's kind of how I got into real estate is because there's a lot of things I like about real estate and also feel like I won't say uniquely, but I have a certain philosophy that is not pervasive in the real estate world that can help better client experience. And of course, the production shows.
So you've heard some people say it. Now, I don't know, I don't have data on this to prove, but you've heard people say that 2021, 2022 was the hottest real estate market in the history of real estate and that we may not see it again. What was it like starting your career in potentially the hottest real estate market ever?
So actually, I started my career before 2021. 2021 was my first year. I was doing part-time in summer of 2020. And November, I became a full-time realtor because I was basically, in all candor, I was making almost $250,000 in my old job. And when I decided to become a realtor, which, as you know, most people make less than 6 figures, and everybody thought I was nuts. They're saying, what are you doing? Why are you going this route? I did not have a crystal ball. It wasn't like I saw the market was hot, I decided to jump in. I just thought a opportunity where I can control my own destiny. And so December, of course, took off. But before that, I think in 2020, I sold about 6 or 7 homes before the market took off. Then of course, really is December of 2020, I think is almost like the day after Elon Musk announced that he's going to move to Texas or Austin specifically, move his whole operations. The market just went bananas. I remember the day, I think it was actually December 8th, and of 2020. So, but fast forward, yes, it's definitely very much a crazy market. A lot of what we've seen in Central Texas, I think is a combination, speaking to what you said, Corbin, about we may not see again. I think it's a combination between the stock market was going up, the interest rate was going down. You have basically a lot of high earning professionals that they were working from home versus having to commute 2 to 3 hours a day. So they have extra money, extra time, and of course, the ability of working from home also led a lot of people to select Texas and some of the other states that don't have state income tax to relocate to. Because if you don't have state income tax, I mean, tax rate, the state tax rate in California is 13%. So if you move from California to Texas, you're giving yourself a 13% raise, essentially, so long as your company doesn't penalize you from living in Texas. And some do, quite frankly, afterwards. But in 2020, I don't think that was the case. They don't care because people don't know if anybody's ever going to go back to the office. So I feel like that's what's causing the market to go up, is the perfect storm, which, quite frankly, unless we have another pandemic, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
What do you see? So I know that North Austin is your primary market. Let's just say for Central Texas, where do you see the market going in terms of values? Do you see values staying flat, going up, going down? What's your opinion on future values?
This is always a loaded question, right? Because this is a crystal ball questions that many attempt to answer, but very few are even remotely correct. So I'll answer it this way. I think Central Texas as a whole, it will probably stay relatively flat for the next year to two. And I think there's a few factors that need to settle down before we start seeing any type of potential market upswing. One of which is interest rate. It doesn't even have to go down. Obviously this is your domain, Corbin, so this is just my take on as a realtor. I have heard interest rates going to drop for 3 years in a row, and they really haven't. I mean, they went like this. At times they drop, but they usually, it's 6 to 7 most times. I just feel like once people accept the interest rate is going to settle into the new normal, whatever that may be, that's statement number one. Because you have a lot of buyers that are thinking the interest rate is going to go down to the fours, which I don't see that happening. But if it's just going to settle down, you're going to move all the fence sitter to active buyer. So that's number one that needs to happen. Number two is the job market, and this is relatively new because we are impacted positively by tech sector, and now tech is just getting slammed, right? Stock is going down, they're doing layoffs, they don't know what's happening. Techs have to stabilize, and once tech stabilize, again, I'm not even saying go on the hire spree, but just so people are not fearing of losing their job, that's going to contribute to potential market swing up. Third thing, which actually is not self-serving because I saw a lot of new constructions, as you pointed out, builders have to stop building home like it's 2021. And I think that we are running into huge concerns of Austin being overbuilt because builders are building still like it's 2021, and they're still pumping out 5 to 10 to 15 new constructions every month that's ready to be sold. And they're under pressure to sell that. And the problem is that that is eroding into resale and is impacting sellers' ability to sell the home. So builder will have to sell the inventory for less than what they want to sell it for, just because we have a surplus of inventory. The seller have to sell the home for less than what they want to sell it for, again, because of surplus of inventory. So that, honestly, I see is the biggest challenge, is that we have to get the inventory, the supply and demand, almost, on a normal pattern, and stop thinking the market is going to shoot up. Because I am no longer believe the market's going to shoot up. I think the market is going to, we are on the low point. So this is not discouraging anybody from buying a home right now, because I don't think it's going to go down that much more, if anything at all. But by the same token, I'm also not of the opinion that you buy now, you're going to make 40 grand by next year. I do think for people that looking to buy temporarily, you should not buy right now. You should be renting, because the market is going to be remain volatile for the next couple of years. Then hopefully one of all these factors, once they stabilize, we can hopefully see what a new normal looks like. Then people can make realistic decisions. Right now, it's all speculation on top of speculations, because so much of the market today is driven by consumer speculations.
Yeah, it sounds like there might be a little bit of that going on with builders too. I'm wondering if they find out, like let's say that they build 10 homes in a neighborhood, a couple of them sit on the market for 180 days. They have a lot of leverage to offer things like, lower interest, prepaid interest rates. They bought, loans for their neighborhood in advance, and they can offer, 1 or 2 points lower than market. Throw in the appliances and give a 10K seller credit or builder credit. I wonder if on the next round, they either don't build those houses or they re-strategize. You know what I mean? Because I haven't thought about that. It's like the builders really do control the value, because they're the ones that control the supply.
Yeah, so I'll share a little bit about my insight just working for corporations for 25 years, and leading into how potentially the builders that are making this decision may have made the wrong decision. Because I have worked for companies that are billion-dollar companies that are in the legal space, and what I've seen, the larger the companies, there are more layers on making a decision. So this is how potentially a decision might happen in these builders, right? You will have the board that demand a certain amount of growth, come hell or high water. They don't care the economy. They don't care the fact that they have overbuilt. They're basically mandating that we need to grow by this much. Then that has a trickle down effect, right? It goes from the board to the C-level, down to the VPs, down to the manager, down to regional, down to district, and they have no choice but to pump it out and hope for the best. They have to, if they don't produce, they have zero chance of selling these homes, right? So they have to build. It's almost like build it, and hopefully they will come. So I do believe a lot of that is that kind of psychology. And the other thing that's threatening Central Texas real estate is the commercial building. By that, I don't mean your strip malls. I mean your luxury townhomes and apartments. I don't know where you are, Corbin, but basically, Domain kind of started this, where you have this live, play, work philosophy. You have a lot of luxury apartments. People come down after work, they go to a bar, they go shop, and things like that, right? And now the problem is that where I'm at, every single subdivisions have what's called quote unquote luxury apartments. And these are several hundred units. And there's probably about 15 communities that's surrounding me. They all have several hundred units, if not over 1,000 units. Where's that demand going to come from, right? And they are offering free rent, they're throwing things out. And that to me is a very big threat because not only are they competing with each other, they're also competing with homeowners that are potentially like me and you, that are just investors. We have one investment property here and there. And now all of a sudden, our tenant have the options of do they want to stay in a single family home that they have to manage everything, or do they want to move to apartments, almost like a concierge, type of experience. Now, if they're a working professional without any family, the apartment might be very attractive to them. They don't need a yard. They can walk their dog in a dog park, right? But if they have family, they may want a single family home. And now you even have, for example, like Santa Rita, you have companies that build homes specifically for rental. It's almost like they're building apartments, except these are single family homes owned by corporations for the sole purpose of renting. So all these to me, are threatening the backbone of what built Central Texas market back in 2021, which by and large are mom and pop investors. There are people just like us, middle to lower upper class people that have made some money and they want to invest in real estate. And that, I think over time will slow down because they can't have these many units that sit vacant. But it remains to be seen what the ripple effect is. And what I'm about to say is going to sound controversial. It's going to sound very arrogant. But when I was in my 20s, I'll walk into a meeting, a boardroom with the C level and the VP. I used to feel like, geez, I'm the dumbest guy here. And all these people, they know a lot better than me. And now every room I walked in, usually I'm the smartest guy in the room. I may not be the wealthiest guy in the room, but usually I'm the smartest guy in the room. And that scares me because you have people that are spending money and don't know the right way of going about to spend the money because they have not done the analysis. They just dive in because awesome market is hot. Have all these investors. Let me go ahead and build out and this could be a corporation. Let me build out a 500 unit apartment in Liberty Hill, Georgetown. And I'm like, this is not domain. Why would people want to live here? When you think about apartments, those are working professionals. You got to be close to bar. That's your luxury apartments. You want to have that live play type of dynamic. That's what people want. And if you want more affordable options, they have to have public transit. And where these apartments are being built, neither one of those dynamics exists. So which really begs the question, who's living in there and how that's going to impact the overall real estate market long term. And I don't have the answers to that. It's not a rhetorical question. Is something of concern as I'm seeing these things going up, basically.
Yeah, huge change to the supply, and I really love talking about things from a macro perspective. Not all realtors can talk about the market like that, so it's really fun to visit about it with you, Albert. Thank you so much. So, how would you explain to a home buyer what a JD Realtor is?
JD is law degree, right? So basically, for me, I came from a family where my parents really value education. And that used to mean degree. A degree used to mean that there is a certain level of competency, knowledge, and educations, which I would beg to say that may or may not be the case nowadays. But because the degree, unfortunately, has been watered down a lot. But for me, I feel like that does separate me from perhaps your average realtor because I can read a contract and understand it. And it's not just a TREC, Texas Real Estate Commission, created form that we know, hey, I got to fill out box, in 12 AC or something like that. I can read a builder's contract and actually understand it, understand the implications of that. Where a lot of realtors, they do feel like, I don't want to get involved because TREC may consider it as illegal practice of law. But my thing is that I would just tell my client, look, I'm not giving you legal advice, but this is what I'm seeing. These are the paragraphs you need to be aware of. This is what I think they mean. Read it, see if you agree. And if you have any concern, consult an attorney. I am one, but I'm not an active practicing lawyer, so I can give you that advice. And the other thing is that hopefully you convey as important as my legal background, I think my business background is equally important, because you probably hear what is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expect different results. And I hate to say it, but that's the marketing strategy of a lot of realtors I come across. Their pattern is that they're going to look at the comps, they're going to determine a price, they're going to take the photos, do X, Y, and Z, do staging. It's rinse and repeat with every single home, regardless of the home. And then if it doesn't work, price reduction, price reduction, price reduction, price reductions, right? And that is always the formula. And while I'm not here to say that formula doesn't work. I am saying that's not the formula for every single home, for every single situation. Because quite frankly, if that's the formula, the human factor is taken out. Then Zillow could take over the world. But they didn't, even at the height of the market, because there are good realtors out there that are able to still market a product, and I do call a home a product differently, and to drive buyer in, right? And that's why Zillow didn't do well when they got into the iBuyer program and try to do the same thing like Open Door, offer pad and things like that. That's why they got out of business, because they can't reproduce that human factor. But by the same token, what a lot of realtors don't realize is that we are our biggest assets as a business, and we have to find a way of adding value to our client. And if we don't, then we will become obsolete. So for me, that's a long-winded way of answering your question about JD Realtor, is really just hopefully convey knowledge as well as experience, which I will touch a little bit about that, because you mentioned we started around the same time. And what I always hate when I first started, and this was even back in 2022, because at that point I've done about, in less than 18 months, I've done about close to 70 transactions already. And where you probably know this, I think 75% of the realtors last year didn't sell even one home, right? Majority of them sell less than 5 homes. So if you stack me up to basically your B and C level realtors, well, I have 50 years of experience based on production, right? If you sell 5 homes and or even 1 home, right? I can say I have 20, 30, 50 years of experience based on what most people would sell. But people always ask, well, how long have you been doing this? I always hate to answer that question, because that is not a measure of experience. So going back to JD Realtor, the goal is to just hopefully convey confidence and experience that's not necessarily measured by tenure.
Right. There's 2 types of realtors that I invite on the show. One is people who've been introduced to me by others, so essentially friends, and then the top 1% of realtors in Austin. And that you got a text message invite from me, and that you and I had never met before. So it's easy to figure out where you sit in the Austin real estate market. I just sort by buy side production, and you're in the top 1% of realtors performing for home buyers, but your listing performances almost identical. So you're doing just as good there. Obviously, one of the best or one of the highest producing realtors in Central Texas. So congratulations on all the success. I really want to thank you for coming on today. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you, especially about the market insight. So Albert, thank you so much. Albert Chen, where can people find you online?
Yeah, so my website is aatxresidential, all spelled out.com. So kind of think of Albert ATX residential.com. But if
Got it.
Albert's not in there, it's too long otherwise. So
Awesome. Albert, thanks again.
thanks, Corbin.
Thank you.
If we already know each other, thanks for dropping by. If you're a first-time listener, then we'd love to hear what you think. Please follow wherever you're listening and consider leaving a 5-star review so that more awesome people like you can find our content. To learn more about loan options with Corbin, visit MatisseMortgage.com and click free phone consultation. Take care, and we'll see you next time on House Money with Corbin Matisse.